you. Welcome back.
All right. I am so excited to have you join us today. She has been an amazing executive coach, chief product officer at many companies, and I will let her introduce herself. But we've both had careers where we had to really present and present each other. And so today we're going to share a lot of that learning with you. So let me share my screen, and that way we can get started. All right, executives present, speak with power, lead with calm.
Hi everybody. Thanks for the intro, Elena. I appreciate it. I'm Yue. We both have similar backgrounds in product, and I've since my product days transitioned into executive coaching full time. I feel very privileged to be in a place where I can share a lot of the learnings from my days as an executive, as well as through working with clients since 2016. So here's some ways to connect with me. I have a course on Maven, but I'm also very active on LinkedIn and Substack. And I share a lot of my leadership and career advice there. So looking forward to getting connected after this session.
Amazing. And here's a little bit about myself. I'm Elena Luneva. I've been Chief Product Officer at several companies, so Brain Trust, Nextdoor, Nuna. I've been a product operator across companies like Liquid Space, OpenTable, and BlackRock. And the way I help people now is through two different courses: develop CPO level skills, and then AI powered executive communication. And like you, I have a Substack, and you can find me there, or I even have my email here. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions after what you and I share. We'll also send a follow-up email with the video, any sort of Q&A and notes. So thank you for joining us. All right. In terms of agenda, we really wanted to focus on that 90-second pitch. We all know executives are really busy. So how do we craft what we're trying to say and capture attention in a way that is heard, not only listened to, but is heard and understood within the context of the people that we're speaking to? And then build those confident stories that signal executive readiness. And we'll focus a little bit on tone, pacing, body language, how to practice some of that with AI, so you're not solo in your pursuit.
Amazing. I'm gonna kick us off. So we'll cover the three topics and we'll talk a little bit from our personal experiences after each one so you can get some color and then we can save some discussion for Q&A. Feel free to pop the questions in the chat as you have them and we can go back. So the first topic is how do you get an executive's attention? Okay, they're very, very busy people with very busy calendars. And most likely, any room that you're seeing them in or a meeting that you're, attending, there's probably 20 other topics that have been on their mind in the last 24 hours. They may or may not remember something about the topic that you brought in. Maybe last time you met was a month ago, 6 weeks ago, a quarter ago. So they maybe remember a little bit, but you don't really know what they remember. And last but not least, if they did read the pre-read, which may be rare depending on the company and culture you're in, they might have like one question that stood out to them from the pre-read, and they're just kind of waiting to ask that question. And so that's the mindset that the executive is walking in with, which it's very different from probably the mindset you're walking in with, which is this is probably the only topic you've been thinking about for the last 24 hours. You have a breadth of information to share and you know a lot about it. And so this difference is where understanding that mindset really helps you sort of get into, okay, then how do I get their attention? Right? Because when you come from your own mindset, you are like, obviously, this is the most important thing. I spent so much time on this. But from the executive point of view, they're like, okay, what is this thing I just jumped into? Why does this matter to me? So that gets me to the next slide, which is really around bringing them into your context. So the thing that's going to get them to be like, okay, I'm going to sit here for the rest of that 30 minutes or 90 minutes is one, why does this topic matter to me as the executive? Not you as the person presenting, but as the executive. Why am I spending time here? And there's only a few things that at the end of the day will get their attention. There's some impacts to the business, revenue, costs, stock multiples. Um, what are the risks? If this is a big like legal risk, compliance risk, privacy risk, or there's some really big long term bet that you're trying to make or you're trying to make happen. So I would lead with one of the first things that needs to come up is why does this matter to the executive? And really, these are the few things that's going to get their attention enough to be like, okay, I'll keep listening. Um, and then the second thing to really add some color is who are you as a person? So depending on how frequently you interact, it may be helpful to just remind them your name, what you do, maybe a last interaction. So the last time we met, we talked about XYZ, or any relevant work that you've done in the space. Again, I wouldn't make this a 10-minute biography of everything you've done in the past, but I would pick one or two things that know that really will stand out to them in terms of, okay, this is why this person has some credibility in leading this particular topic. But more important than sort of second bucket, the first one is really critical. Is really just what is that top level impact or thing that the executive needs to know. Even if you're asked, let's say at the end of the day, is a resource, an increase in budget, a decision that needs to be made. I wouldn't stop there. I would up level that to then how does it impact the business? How does it impact revenue? How does it impact the strategic standing of the company? And that's where I would start, even though maybe the decision you're trying to get to is smaller than that.
Yeah, I really agree with that, Yue, because what I teach and what I help people with is really knowing your audience. So what you mentioned right now is up leveling, thinking about the risks, thinking about what matters to the business. If you're someone who's coming into an organization, how do you start to understand that? How do you understand what your audience really cares about?
Yeah, great question. This is where AI could help. So one of the things that I've personally found really useful, and I've seen a lot of product engineering sales leaders use more recently, is if it's an area that you're unfamiliar with, or even a person that you're unfamiliar with, you could actually ask, if your favorite chatbot, questions about that particular area, about that particular person, and actually learn a lot from just sort of a back and forth to get a foundational level of understanding. Then I think for more important meetings, we've all seen the pre-meetings before the pre-meetings and the pre-conversations before the pre-conversations. The reasons those happen is also
Hmm.
to get into what is the context that they're in, right? If you know what's top of mind for this person coming into the meeting, what is the mood that this person is in coming into the meeting, right? I'm often best friends with like the executive assistant of the executives because I'm like, I would ping them right before the meeting and be like, hey, is so and so in a good mood today? Right? Like, what did so and so walk into right before this meeting? And so you can get a lot of nuance and context before you walk into the meeting so you're as prepped as possible when that conversation happens.
Yeah,
I think I have one more.
I
Yeah.
definitely had that happen where I was about to walk into a meeting, and luckily the chief of staff was there, and she's like, "Hey, the CEO's kid like had to go to the hospital." So I'm like, "All right, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about something entirely different because we're not going to be making a decision."
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So why does it matter? Why should they listen to you? And then the third thing I would keep in mind, if we go to the next slide, is what do you need? So you've really set the context. You've kind of got their attention now. And so the thing I would close with in that intro, that first 90 seconds, is what do you need? And I don't know why, but so many people miss this. going into a meeting. As it's a the sort of overall thing is like, well, let's just come to the meeting to talk about this thing, right? I'm like, okay, I don't want to talk about this thing. I want to know what is it that you actually need. Is it a decision? Do you want certain resources? Are you trying to share contacts? Is this the FYI? Is this an inform everybody at the table, which is fine, but it's so important to set that context up front. I'm sure you've all been in meetings where, let's say, somebody thought you were trying to make a decision, someone else thought we were just having a discussion, and someone else thought that, oh, we were just sharing some context from an early phase of work that is far from being, a decision-making topic. And so, whatever it is that you're really trying to get out of the meeting, that would be what I close with in sort of the first part. So, why does it matter? Why does it matter to executive? Who are you to bring this topic? And then what is it that you want out of the conversation? That is what's going to get the attention when you go into then the data and the facts and the research and the graphs and the charts and everything that you've worked so hard on. Those three things are going to have to stick with them throughout that whole conversation.
Agreed. So important to really distill it to a one pager or even less. So here's a three-part system, the executive 90. So this is something your elevator pitch, your what can you do in 90 seconds? So how do you boil down your reams of data and reams of paper to three sentences? So the context, what changed, and that could be changed from the last time you've talked to your executive about this, or something like, hey, there's an AI revolution, or COVID is hitting the company, so we need to really change our strategy. That gets into the meaning and why it matters. And this is where people really struggle. The why it matters really needs to be for them, the executive, or the business. So not necessarily why does it matter for you or your team, but really level that up, as Yue mentioned, to why it matters for the business, because that way of framing, that way of thinking shows that you are ready to think about the business rather than the piece that you're working on within the business. And then the direction, what happens next? What are you going to do about it? What do you need from the board? What do you need from the executive? Do you need approval, as you said? Do you need direction? Do you need resources? So, really thinking through that action that you're trying to elicit from your audience. So in the next slide, what I wanted to share with you is just an AI prompt, and you and I will share this afterwards. So you can take something that you're talking about and use your favorite AI agent to help you condense it into this type of format. So the other things you might notice here is some of the tone and pacing that it can help you with in the text. And then you can practice it out loud. You can practice it with something like a Udly, where you'll have the context, you'll have the sentence, and ask it to help you underline the phrase where you want to emphasize. Help you add things like pauses so that the person presenting it, you're probably anxious, you're probably nervous, you're probably looking for that approval, can remember to breathe and can remember to help your brain catch up to what you're saying. But then on the other side, for the executive, like Yui said, they've probably come from 20 different meetings and have other things on their mind. So if you can stop, if you can emphasize, if you can change your tone, it'll help them catch up and really remember and process what you're saying. The second one, the meaning, why it matters. You can help with an AI really prompt what you're going to say, underline the impact phrase, and add the pauses after the key points, and help with your language. What is the language that signals that strategic importance? So you can change how you present, how you communicate in that moment. One of the things to remember is people really respond to your tone, your voice, how you present yourself, much more than the words that you're saying. So if you're coming into this room anxious and you're speeding through your update, there's going to be a little semblance in your executive's eye of like, well, Ryan's not worried about this. Should I be worried about this? So you need to kind of keep those duck feet paddling under the water to yourself and really present yourself as calm and collected in that conversation. And then this third sentence, direction, what happens next? Help your AI with that phrasing and framing so you can underline the actions that are important and really get to those and take out the filler words, the filler ideas, or the takeaways that might not be necessary. I don't know,
Yeah.
Yui, anything to add here from
Yeah.
your experience?
Yeah, I love this. And I actually find that the last one, which we both kind of hone on, I kind of frame as what is it that you need, and yours is like what happens next. That ends up being something that often needs a lot of pre-alignment before you even get in
Mm-hmm.
front of executives. And I find that that sometimes can derail a meeting even before the meeting happens.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
it's yeah, but it's so important to do, right? Because some of us, the first time I remember trying to do this, as the product person, I was like, I'll put in a stake in the sand. This is a decision meeting, right? And literally everyone else I went to the meeting with didn't think it was a decision meeting. They all thought it was some version
Ouch.
of something else, right? And so it may feel like, oh, why don't I just come up with this, right? Like these three sentences. Um, and to some extent, on the context and the meaning, like you kind of can, in the sense that you probably have a lot of alignment around it. But interestingly, sometimes the hardest part of this piece is getting that direction alignment before you go into the meeting with everyone else you're going with. Because that actually
Mm-hmm.
involves a lot of talking around what changed, what do we really, what really matters, and then what are we really trying to get from this executive. And so if the team is not clear, the executive won't be clear. And so this is really a
Exactly.
forcing mechanism, not just for you to be clear, but for literally everyone in that room to, including the executive, to know what we're trying to get out of the conversation. And that can often take much longer than we think, than just like, putting a one sentence down on paper.
Exactly, exactly. So this starts with a framing of like, here's what the direction or here's the actions I'm looking for. But what you can do next is have those pre-conversations, but also use your favorite AI to help you understand the objections and be that counter to your thoughts. So you can elicit like, hey, the CFO is the person that I'm going to need buy-in from. What do you think his reservations will be? What do you think the CTO, the top risks for her are, so that you can practice that and make sure that you also think through the conversations you need to have before you have the conversation. So really good points there.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about voice and tone in terms of presence. So I think of presence really as gravitas and the ability to command and shift attention towards you when you start to speak, when you have a certain input. And so I wanted to just give three quick tips around when you're especially virtual on video, what that looks like. Many of these things also work in person. So movement is one. So as you can see, if I start moving around in my little square, right? If I start moving my hands with gestures, you're more likely to just pay attention to me. Okay? And so use that to your advantage. So some people will sit back a little bit further as an example when they're listening. And then when they want to talk, they'll move a little bit closer. Some people will, my screen's actually not set up for this very well today, will move their hands around to get attention. So there's a physical component of presence that's really just grabbing the attention of others on the call. The second is really how much space you take up. I love how the folks that are on the call now seem to take up a good percentage of their space. This is what we're really looking at. Sometimes I see people here like this, trying to do a presentation like this. And is anyone paying attention? Because it doesn't feel like I am. So just make sure, yeah, that you're not kind of over here and no one can really see what's happening when you're trying to make that. And set up your camera systems and everything such that you take up a good percentage of that rectangle. And then looking into the camera. So the way that I have my video set up, I have all you guys directly under my camera. Because I've seen it where, let's see if I can move you guys over here and I'm talking like this. I am talking to you, but you don't think I'm talking to you because the camera's up here, right? So one just like trick or thing that works well for me is just having the participants and the people you're speaking with under the camera, or some people put like a picture behind it, like something that they're more naturally going to look at, such that it looks like you're looking into the camera. All of these things matter in person. Moving around when you're in person also helps a lot. Some people actually stand up and walk around the room when they're trying to make a point. Again, the arm gestures can help. Make sure you're sitting at the table. Make sure you're taking up space in the room. And then looking at the person you're talking to. I know it can be a little bit scary. So some people do sort of a bit more scanning. So you're not staring at someone, but it's good to make eye contact, like quick 2, 3 second eye contact as you're talking and making eye contact with folks in the room.
Yeah, I really agree with that. That taking up space and that presence, that even moving forward to emphasize some of the points, really gets that connection across. And the thing that I like to do is look at the green dot and pretend it's the person, even though that's probably a more weird tip than the one you gave you.
Whatever works, whatever will get you to look at the green dot for a period of
Exactly.
time.
Yeah, I also put, and you said the same thing. I put the faces next to where the camera is because so then you're not looking to the side. It's a little harder for me because I'm trying to navigate the slides right now, so everyone's on the side, so I have to consciously move my head back to that green dot.
Yeah, yeah. We got a quick question. Is it more effective to present sitting or standing?
Hmm. Well, I prefer standing, and the reason for that is just your body posture. Like I think of myself as a tree, and so my feet are grounded, and I have a level of connection. So if things get heated, I'm connected to what I'm standing on, and I think it makes me feel like I'm getting some exercise because I'm standing, but I'm not sure if that actually is true.
Yeah.
How about you?
Um, I'm not much of a standing person. The thing that I would say is I like to make sure my feet are grounded.
Hmm.
I know it's not a thing that you can see, but if your feet are on the ground, whether you're standing or sitting, that's what matters. And often we sit without our feet on the ground. And so if that means getting a stool, a footrest, something that you can rest your foot on, because for some reason, when we don't feel grounded with our feet touching the ground, we tend to get more stressed and more nervous faster. And that
Hmm.
shows up in the conversation. So if it's an important conversation, get grounded somehow into your seat. Or if you're standing, you're naturally, hopefully, going to be standing like a tree into the ground.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Um,
both you and I talk about just tough conversations, and I think that feedback to be grounded or connected to something really helps in those situations when things get heated and you find yourself in a room that you don't want to be in, but you happen to be in anyways.
yeah, yeah. The last thing I wanted to mention on presence is just the talking slower and how helps
Mm.
increase confidence. So what naturally happens when we get nervous or stressed is we talk a lot faster and then it's hard to follow and then there's a lot of things happening. Yeah.
What was that?
In executive conversations, I think the thing to remember is actually to slow down. And it's so hard because your brain has so many things that it wants to get done, that it wants to everyone else to know, that it's hard to slow down. But at the same time, you're the most knowledgeable person, most likely about that topic in the room. So to get everyone else up to speed, to answer a tough question, slowing down really helps with your own confidence because it allows you to take deeper breaths, allows you to have more air in vocalizing what you want to say. But it also allows the other person, telling us point earlier, to catch up, to be like, what's happening? Right? I just had 20 other things. So really slowing down. When all else fails, I say just say the words slower, even if it's I don't know, because it helps with that presence and that confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of questions, so maybe we can take those before
Yeah.
the next one. In terms of any tips for handling nervousness?
Mm. Deep breath. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out really helps. I have some people literally close their eyes for a second or two. The nervousness comes from something being triggered in us in terms of fear, in terms of a lack of safety. And the deep breaths and closing our eyes sometimes will help with that. Less caffeine also helps. Yes. What
Or more caffeine, depending on the
about you?
nervousness.
Yeah.
For me, definitely breathing. The other piece is that level of being grounded. So can you connect with something? Because that also helps slow you down, think through what you're saying. The third is frequently we're nervous because we don't know what's going to happen. How will people perceive us? Will we remember the facts that we've been trying to memorize? Are they even right, the things we're trying to present? So one of the things I teach is the improvisation framework, but you can YouTube a couple right now, and really thinking about yourself and being in the scene with everybody else, and trying to see if you can be present there. So even if you forget most of the things you're trying to say, even if the people that you're presenting to think that you are not the right person for the job, you know, be there and be present and listen and connect with your audience and really think more about them rather than you, because honestly you have your 20 seconds of attention. Most likely executives have a bunch of things going on just like you, and they care much less about you than you think. So if you kind of get yourself out of the you mentality and really focus on your audience, I think it helps reset some of those feelings. All right. A couple of other questions, but yes, breathing definitely helps. Um, yep. And that's a good point from Mitesh. Remember, executives are normal people like us. They have families, they have anxieties, they have lives. They know some things and they don't know other things, and that's fine. All right. In many cases, the executive conversations are happening ad hoc and without much time to prepare in advance. Any suggestion for those scenarios?
I think where I my head goes is why does that happen? Because executive
Mm.
conversations ad hoc rarely go well. I will just preface with that. So if as an executive, if I'm going into a conversation ad hoc, I'm quite confident I'm not making my best decisions. And so
Mm.
the first question I would kind of ask is more around the environment, right? Instead of trying to be Superman or Superwoman and like be sort of effective in all environments under all situations, where my head goes to is like, how could I actually avoid this environment or situation where these conversations are happening ad hoc? So instead of trying to learn, let's just say, how to be an amazing speaker, a negotiator, and a facilitator on the spot, I would actually spend time on how could I make these conversations less ad hoc? How could we have more prep going into them? And then on the margin, right, you always need to react to things. And so I think outside of trying to change how ad hoc these are, I would think about what are the types of topics that come up that are ad hoc. Do we need to make a decision in that moment, or can this be more of a discussion that's a bit more free form and we explicitly say we come back? Again, I'm trying to add
Mm,
structure to it, as you can tell. Come back and make a decision. Um, or if it's really like for some reason, an emergency, a fire, the site went down and you've got to make a decision in the next, 30 seconds. What I often do, and I think most of you has probably heard this, is the situation complication resolution framework. And I try to
yeah.
use that framework in trying to logically walk through a lot of the conversation to be like, what are we talking about? What is it that went wrong? And then, like, what are we trying to decide? Again, going back
Hmm.
almost to that first initial thing, just to set the context so that we can have that conversation.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like, can you avoid those, or can you reframe them to a different time? I think the reality is they happen, and sometimes the time you find your executive is driving somewhere or walking somewhere. So for me, what's worked is being okay with that and not feeling as much on the spot. So if you're asked a question and you don't know the answer to that question, don't come up with stuff. That's the worst that can happen, because I've had a situation where I accidentally quoted a number that was 10x off, and then I had to get myself out of that hole for months because I broke a level of trust with the CEO. So instead, if you don't have the answer, say, let me look into that, or I will get that information and definitely do. And then, as Yue mentioned, can you reframe it to either discussion or curiosity, and get um, have the conversation as two people, but not necessarily make decisions in that conversation, and then reframe it to a different time. All right. So I think we had one more framework, but maybe we go into questions since. What do you
Sure.
think? Questions or framework? I don't know how to do a poll quickly. All right, one more framework, and then we'll get back to the questions. And that's the 4P delivery model. So think about when you are delivering the information you're looking to, as yourself and how you're presenting. So really start with pace, and you really focused on the slowness, slower than you think, slower, clearer, becomes more confidence. The second one is pitch. So a lot of people I work with, they do that, and this is the end of the question. And so that up talk changes how people are perceived, and it feels like you're less sure. So that flat ending really speaks authority. That solid close um, goes back to confidence and authority. Pause where you can, where you need to help yourself catch up and to help your audience catch up. Add the pauses. As a operator starting out, I really wanted to get out of the spotlight as quickly as possible. So I would rush through my update and get out of there. And that really served a disjustice to my team and the things that we were working through. So pause, take up the space, and really make sure that you have the time and space to have what you're saying resonate. And then your posture, we talked through that. Square shoulders, open chest, stillness where it makes sense, emphasis or getting closer to the camera or to the person where it makes sense. So that kind of helps wrap up some of the things that Yue and I talked through. And then we can get into how you can find us, and then we'll get into questions. So both Yue and I have some fantastic courses coming up at the end of the year and in January. So you want to take a couple of minutes to go through yours. And let
Yeah.
me see, I think there was a better slide that actually went through all of it. Here we go.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I teach a course on executive presence and communication. It's 3 weeks. The first week focuses on the presence piece, the second week on communication, and then the third week actually on influence, because I think that your presence relates a lot to the relationships and what happens outside of the room before you walk into the room. So we'll love it if this is something that you're interested in. And similar to what Elena was talking about, we spent a good time using AI as well to help us with the prep, with the practice, and also with our own presence and noticing how it is that we show up to our conversations. So if you're interested, the next cohort starts at the beginning of December for the first 3 weeks, just before, and it ends right before the holidays. So if you have the chance to squeeze something in, check it out.
Amazing. And then for me, I have a course that's really focused on product managers, although data scientists, engineers have taken it as well. And the focus is on getting you from building really great product to running the business. And so to me, those four skill areas are go to market. So making sure you build something somebody actually buys, financial acumen, making sure you price it, how you develop it, how you market it aligns with the way that grows your business. And the two areas that you mentioned, executive presence, so you can pitch your ideas and then influence the conversations outside of the rooms to make sure you get your points across. This one is in December, and both for my course, for Yui's course, Maven and us are offering a 25% discount through Monday, I believe, through Monday that can be applied. So we're sort of in this Black Friday sale. And then for next year, really focusing on AI powered executive communication. So less on presence and more on communication systems, the tough conversations you have to have, and then representing the company externally. So whether that's on LinkedIn or on stage in a TED Talk, and the systems that you need to be that executive that companies are recruiting for now, because us, you, myself, have been the channels for our companies and representing our companies. Awesome. Really great to talk to you all, and we can get back to the chat and some of the remaining questions. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, who was next? Um, Scenario question about the executive 90. What if the purpose of the meeting is to make a request of an exec that you already know they're not going to want to say yes to, like a resource request during hiring freeze, for example? Do you still say the purpose up front? Well, I think if you want an action to happen and you think it won't happen, it probably doesn't make sense to have a meeting about it. That said, if you um, don't think the answer will happen, you still need the answer to happen. That's where influence comes into place. Is there a way for you to understand the context of your audience? Do you understand who can influence your audience? And can you frame your ask within that context? That's the first step. The second one is about their feelings and how they're feeling. Like if you know there's a hiring freeze, and you know that the company is not hiring now or there's other reasons not to do that, it's likely not the right time, unless you have a different way forward, like AI enablement, that you can do something differently. And there is a business justification where if you hire this person, there's a financial return that replaces the costs of hiring this additional person.
Yeah.
But you, yeah, let me know if you have.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think there's a way to reframe the conversation. I think it could be more helpful so you're not directly going against something that is, let's say, ongoing policy. That said, I love breaking the rules. And so I think there is a maybe, again, not enough context, but there may be a way of having the conversation where you lead with, again, the punchline of like, I know there's a hiring freeze, but my goal in the next 30 minutes is to convince you that we really need this person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I would still lead with the thing. I think the question was, do you still lead with it? Yes, I would. Because if you bury the lead and that ask comes in the last 10 minutes, there's no way that's going to happen. Versus
Exactly.
if you kind of ask for it at least upfront, like, I'm aware that, I don't know, we don't have any more budget, or I'm aware that we have a hiring freeze. However, my job, like my goal in the next 30 minutes is to show you guys why this is such a critical investment for us to make and why it has to be now. Right. And
Exactly.
now you have their attention, even if they're okay, they disagree, let's say, off the bat.
Exactly. And to everything you said, like if you can set the stage up front, like you showed that you know your audience, you know the context for the company, and you're still having this conversation. Likely it's because there's a reason. And what I would add to that is there a financial corollary, financial impact you can state in your ask? Because then it's not just about, you know, you being a fantastic product manager, you being a fantastic data leader, but what's in it for them? How is it going to make their life better, or how is it going to move the company forward?
For sure. I have there's an interesting question, I think a little ways up that I'm curious to get your take on. It's about the pace. I think the question was something like, what happens when, let's say, the executives like, can you talk faster? Can you go faster? I've been asked that, so I'm
Yeah,
curious
like
what
the snapping or
yeah,
the
yeah, like can we move along? Because we're saying slower is more confident. So what do you do when someone's like, hey, let's keep going, let's move faster?
Yeah, really good question, and I've definitely been snapped at before, which is a great feeling in any room. Um, Pace can be changed by also the amount of information that you're sharing. So I think you can still be clear, you can still enunciate, you can still pause, you can still emphasize. And frequently, what that like the hand gestures, can we get to the point? And what that tells me is I haven't and I haven't in a way that the person wants to hear or within their context. So that means either you haven't practiced succinctly explaining what is it, why does it matter, and why does it matter for this person, or you're saying things in a different language than they understand. And what I mean by that is a lot of product managers, we talk in user data, engagement, in user value. If you're talking to the CFO, they don't hear that. So rephrasing what you're saying might be what that speed up is really asking you to do.
Yeah.
All
I think
right.
maybe one thing to add there is also just sometimes you can also use that as a moment to ask a question of that person. What is
Mm-hmm.
it you'd like me to get to? Is there a piece that you'd like me to fast forward to? And that way you don't have to make the assumption around where they want to go, right? Because you're either not at the right depth, as in you're too detailed and they want to be higher level, or they have something that you remember they might be walking in with a question. They have something that they're waiting to get to, and they've done the pre-read and the homework, and they just want to talk about that thing. And so I often also find it helpful rather than assuming to just ask and say,
Yeah.
hey, I see you want us to move around more quickly. Where is it that you want us to go from this point? And then just
Yeah.
see what they
That's a
say.
really good point.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a really good point. You just might not be answering the question or the
yeah,
framing. Well, I know we're at time, but I had so much fun with you talking about some of my favorite topics, and hopefully some of the frameworks are helpful. And we'll send an email out with the recording, with the links and the frameworks as well. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.
thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.